The Stadium Heads Week 3 Stadiums episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up, but when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to score up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Yes, they do have college football best ball. Jump on over there, underdogfantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride.
Hey, this is Pac-Man Jones. You're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Have something new coming like that. Okay, that can be done in any case, education. More education, the more informed people are. That's the way it is with everything. Young men, they ask me advice, and I always tell them, get as much knowledge as you can.
Stadium Heads, man.
The granddaddy of them all, the famed Rose Bowl, jammed with a color of over 100,000 fans for its 67th renewal.
And the weather here today at Notre Dame Stadium, in a word, it is cold, but it is football weather. The temperature 37 degrees, humidity 79%. Forecast cloudy for light rain later on this afternoon.
The average person doesn't know what a good stadium is. They might think they know what a good stadium is, but they think just, our seats are nice and it's so comfortable. We have a 10,000-inch screen we can watch the replay on while we're watching the game, and we got a waiter coming over to take our orders, right? And there's 20 million bathrooms close to us. That's not what makes a good stadium. A good stadium is the look of it, the feel of it, the history of it, the soul of it. That's what makes a good stadium. That's what I mean when I say we're stadium heads. We are stadium heads.
They get to run around. Now those people, they shouldn't even be there. That doesn't even count. If you can't get out in the elements, you shouldn't even go to the game. That's the worst thing. Those darn boxes up there and dome stadiums and stuff. We don't need that, right?
Welcome to sunny El Paso, the 52nd Sun Bowl, and now
this ancient facility is one of the great settings in all of college football. Neyland is now in its 87th year.
That's what we are, though. We are stadium heads. Welcome back to the Stadium Heads podcast, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. As we embark on week 3, week 2 is in the books, and oh, what a week it was. If you're wondering just who the hell you're listening to, my name is Colby Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I'm probably drinking too much and celebrating too much and not sleeping. Would have killed a normal man, but no, that's gone. The medical advice I got from that was like being hit by lightning. Pretend it never happened and get on with your life.
Yes, I feel like I was hit by lightning watching all that action week 2. College football delivered. Just like Lou Diamond Phillips, just stand and deliver for us over there. Shout out to LDP. I don't know if anyone ever calls him that, but someone should. All right, his agent should call him LDP. Look, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. I am joined by the most interesting man in college football. You'll see him at pretty much every goddamn stadium in America at some point or another. And I think ESPN might have given him a better introduction than myself.
Now, Michael Barker. You can follow him on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour. This is his 84th college football game of the 2023 season. He said he's going to end at 90 college football games he's attended this year with the college football national title in Houston. And so, again, he's out there with everybody. He's like wet weather. Postal Service, rain, sleet, snow. It doesn't.
Yes, I can tell you he is better than the U.S. Postal Service. Give it up for Michael Barker, a.k.a. College Football Campus Tour. How are you, and where the hell in the world are you at right now?
Man, well, thank you for the high compliment being better than the Postal Service. I really appreciate that. And I'm back home in California. We just finished a 11-game, 10-day road trip and it was fun as hell. But it was definitely a drop yourself into chaos right away. And last night, I flew in home at 10:30 last night, hung out with my family, 5:00 p.m., hit my bed, and I didn't wake up till 6 a.m. So that's what 10 days in either the car or the airport will do to you, and a nice $57 gross hotel in Northwest Atlanta. That's the repercussions from glamour life, as we put it.
Love a good Econo Lodge. Yeah, and shout out to Hoosier Stan. It goes, well, how about my Hoosiers? We're going to get to them because we did, they did. Michael was at that game at Memorial Stadium there in Bloomington. They did deliver against an FCS foe, but week 2 in general, holy shit. I mean, you got Thomas Hammock in Northern Illinois, maybe getting the win of their, people have said it's the biggest win in the history of MAC. The MAC conference, even though they did win at Bama with Thomas Hammock when he was actually a player for them, but still they've won at Nebraska, they've won at Bama, they won at Maryland, they won at Georgia Tech, at Boston College, at Iowa, but this one might be the biggest one as they took down number 5 Notre Dame there. And you saw just great action throughout all of really week 2. Did you get a chance? I know you're at other games to catch the Notre Dame game or maybe some other outcomes.
Well, what's funny is, I've lived on the West Coast my whole life. You grew up on the East Coast. I go to 2 football games on a Saturday, a noon game and a 7 game. The 7 game gets over at 10 p.m. On the West Coast, you're pretty much checking the end of the 7 o'clock games, and hopefully Hawaii's at home and you get something. But when you go on YouTube TV after the second game, there's like 12 games starting on the West Coast. And you're like, oh my God, so you could be anywhere. I was watching Texas Tech, Washington State. That game, just started, and I was back in Connecticut at my uncle's house. He lives out in Connecticut. He gave me accommodations there. But yeah, that was crazy. And another thing jumped out to me is we had 3 FCS wins over FBS schools. We had St. Francis beat Kent State. We had Southern Utah beat UTEP in overtime in the Sun Bowl, and we had Idaho knock off Wyoming in Laramie. And so those ones jump out along with the NIU upset. So that's the problem. You get a lot of people talking about they shouldn't rank the top 25 for a couple weeks because we don't know what these teams are other than in paper. Notre Dame especially, goes into Kyle Field week 1 and beats them, holds them to 13 points. You think they're great. Then all of a sudden NIU beats them, and shout out to NIU. They're ranked number 25 in the nation right now. So a lot of intrigue. Cal beating Auburn in Jordan Hare. That was an interesting game. So a lot to digest in week 1 or week 2.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't help but notice that their parity has been trending this way, since really NIL and the transfer portal became a thing. I know people blast the NIL and the transfer portal. Hell, Thomas Hammock didn't. He goes, we don't even have those guys, we don't even use the transfer. We have a family, which, yeah, I do believe there's something to that. But I also believe that the parity of the game is because you saw it. I mean, TCU got blown out in the national championship, but they came out of nowhere. They were 5-7 the year before. Right. And they go to the national championship, beat a Michigan team, that plays for the national championship or wins the national championship the next year, but also, Michigan is like a blue blood. So you saw it with Washington last year. They were not very good, 2 years prior. They came up, and I believe we're having a bigger impact on the sport with the NIL. If you were to sit there and say, who are the best players in college football right now? Like if you said the best quarterbacks in college football or the best running backs in college football, the best receivers in college football, you'd be surprised. Like, it's not like if we said this 10 years ago, I think you would say it would be like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. Yeah, you occasionally get someone else, like Aaron Rodgers or something at Cal. But right now you look at it, you're like, maybe you could say Cam Ward, maybe you could say Shedeur Sanders. I don't know, but Ashton Jeanty, I think, is by far the best running back in the country right now. That guy's a stud, and I think Boise State paid up to keep him there. Luther Burden at Missouri or Tetaroa McMillan at Arizona. These are not traditional blue bloods. Those are probably the top 2 wideouts in the nation. And the fact that they're able to stay there, I think you're seeing college football really strengthen from that point of view. Like I said, some people hate it because there are, 2,000 players or to 3,000 players in the portal. And I understand that it's hard for, if you're a lay fan to keep up with all that. But to me, as the health of the sport, I think you can see the parity every single Saturday, and it's becoming more and more apparent with the coming years since the NIL. So I think that's probably having something to do with it.
And it works the other way too, where, you have a great team and then, we've had years where players graduate and they fall off a little bit, but look at Florida State, goes 13-0 and now lost 2 conference games to start the year. They're calling the bench the starting quarterback. Notre Dame, they're talking about you could still make the, if you're in a conference and you lose 1 or 2 games, you could still make the playoff. But if you're independent, it's going to be tough to be able to get that spot unless you're going 11-1. And if you have a loss to a MAC team, it hurts. So, it works a lot where stability and what you're talking about, roster stability, plays a big factor. But you can also make a big jump. And we've seen that over the years. Texas is all of a sudden just looks like a powerhouse. And there was a few years where they were searching for coaches, and now it looks like they've got it going. And Michigan has, J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum and Jim Harbaugh. And now, what's going on up there. So I think that there's the highs and the lows, which speaks to the parity you're talking about, because it's going to be more difficult unless you're Georgia right now, who has everything lined up perfect. It's really hard to sustain, like, this model will work for 7 to 10 years. You got to constantly replenish, continue to recruit your own players, and keep dumping incredible amounts of money into your facilities and your NIL to stay afloat. Because if you don't do it, somebody else is going to, Pac-Man you and come and take it from you.
Yeah, 100%. Those games, I mean, Boise probably should have beat Oregon if they don't give up 2 special teams touchdowns. I kind of thought they were the better team, but hey, that's why special teams are great. Like you had a 90-yard punt return and then a kick return for a touchdown, and that's kind of what won Oregon the game. Yes, I thought the refs were a little, getting one of their players ejected on some nonsense, but I still think like the games were phenomenal. Week 2 really delivered, and if you look at week 3, I know it's not the sexiest of games, but that's normally when they deliver too. I feel like I have this conversation with my brother all the time of like, you think you're going to have there's not a lot of premier matchups. There's no Michigan, Texas, but those are the weeks that I feel like deliver. You know what I mean? Like you take Georgia, Kentucky. Kentucky looked awful last week, and maybe Georgia runs through them, but maybe that would be the one we don't see coming or something like that. They'll be there. And I think back to Northern Illinois, I think the fact that we have a 12-team playoff where you can actually foresee them now with that win, I think they become more watchable for everybody. And I think this is how the 12-team playoff works, and why, I mean, it works more than 4, in my opinion, of like, well, now Northern Illinois kind of becomes must watch week in, week out, at least until they lose a couple games, because even if they're 10-2 and win the MAC at the end of the year, if they beat Notre Dame, that might be the best thing on the board. So they would get in off that. So they really have to go like, I would say like 8-4, maybe even 9-3. Obviously Notre Dame still has to have a winning season and stuff, but that makes it fascinating. Before we wouldn't care, like before when Northern Illinois beat Alabama in 2002 or 3, whatever year that was, or when they beat Nebraska in like 2014 or 15, we didn't follow them the rest of the, I mean, look, your average person did not follow them the rest of the year. They're just like, oh, what a great win for the program. Now I feel like you're just like, oh shit, Northern Illinois, who do they got next week? They're on bye next week. Okay. After that, they're NC State. They got NC State, I feel like it's just the game is easier to follow now, and with giving more people, more teams the chance.
And we have an example from just a couple of years ago where Cincinnati beat Notre Dame early in the season, ran the table in the American, and they got into the playoff. And that would have never happened without beating Notre Dame. And so those are the kind of bricks that were laid to give teams like NIU a chance. And Boise, even though they lost to Oregon by 3 points, in college basketball, they talk about good losses, right? And quality losses, or Q1 or whatever it is. And so that's a good one. And if they run the table, they're good. So yeah, it's playing out. The other side of that is, you don't want a team that loses their first 3 games and then goes and wins their conference and somehow gets a 10 seed there in the playoff. That's the opposite side of it. But, this is all an experiment, and people weren't happy with 4 when a team like Florida State goes 13-0 and doesn't get in. maybe 12 will be the number, but it's exciting to see how it plays out. And for better or for worse, a loss in week 1 or 2 does not end your season anymore.
Yeah. And UCF won 25 in a row and still didn't get in. So, I mean, to me, I would argue. Yeah. Folks, look, gonna jump into the action and talk about where Michael has been over the past past week. But before I do that, I want to let you know that the Stadium Heads podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes, Underdog Fantasy Pick'em gives you a chance to win 1,000 times the amount of money you enter. The NFL is back, and there are a ton of pick'em specials to get you started. You can now use specials and boost on all flex entries as well. So what are you doing? They have college football, best ball, folks. I know we did an episode on this show talking about that. So sign up. And when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. All right, we are back, and just want to hit on some of the travel, man. Look, and I think we're going to load up some slides. YouTube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. Shout out to Kevin Marshall, by the way. FCS Nation Radio in the house. Check out them, as obviously the FCS scored some huge wins. I couldn't believe the St. Francis one, mainly because I had watched St. Francis Dayton the week before because I had wagered on St. Francis against Dayton. I was like, oh, they're gonna fuck up this Pioneer Football League team, and no, not the case. Dayton actually stuck it to him. So I was like, and Kent State I thought looked improved against Pitt. So I was like, oh man, I mean I didn't bet that game, but I was fascinated that St. Francis took down Kent State after the way they looked week 1, because they did not look very good week 1. Shout out to the Red Flashes in the NEC getting a I think I read it was their second or third win against the FBS. But FCS showing up. Idaho was just a flat out better team too. If you watch that Idaho-Wyoming game, there was no gimmicks. That was just one team was better than the other team the whole game. And that was the Idaho Vandals.
What's exciting about that one is they play Albany next week at home, which is a rematch of the playoff game that they lost in the quarterfinals that I went through. And, Poffenberger, the quarterback, he transferred out. It's a different team. But this is all of a sudden Albany coming and playing what it looks like a fully stocked, reloaded, motivated Idaho team. One of their defensive linemen had 3 sacks in the game. So impressive. And, it kind of after the week 1 game when Wyoming got blown out by Arizona State, we said on the show, we're going to find out about Arizona State and Wyoming in week 2. And Arizona State beat an SEC team at home in week 2, and Wyoming lost to an FCS team at home in week 2. So week 1 proved to be a window into what week 2 was for both those teams.
Yeah, I mean, and Arizona State had like 250 rushing yards early. I want to say they had 230 at halftime against Mississippi State. So I misjudged the Sun Devils, and I certainly misjudged the Wyoming Cowboys as well. Yep. So your travels from a week ago. I'm going to load this up right here. You on Wednesday, was it? I think it was.
Yep.
You went to Mississippi College at Shorter. All right. Thursday, you went to Central State at Grand Valley State. Friday, you went to Western Illinois at Indiana and Memorial Stadium there. And Saturday, you did a 2-for-1 here. St. Anselm at Sacred Heart and Fordham at Central Connecticut State. And that was your week 5 games. But really, you had a 6th game in there. And I'm going to jump to that first because walk me through the Florida State Boston College game ends on Labor Day Monday. Where do you go from there?
So when you rent a car, if you return it to a different destination than you rent it from, it costs more. And so if I know that I'm going to be in a place for a couple days, I don't want to rent a car in Jacksonville and then keep it for 3 days and then return it to Atlanta. And then I would rather immediately drive to Atlanta, turn in the car for a 1-day fee, and then walk across the lot, get another car, and then have that checked out in Atlanta and have it for 2 days, and then return it to Atlanta to get that fee. So I landed in Jacksonville Monday at 12:30, and I had to get the car back to Atlanta Airport by 12:30 to swap it out. So I immediately drove to Atlanta, and I tried to figure out something to do. I did a couple of campus stops, but also the Atlanta Braves were playing on a Tuesday night, and they have a beautiful new ballpark. And the ticket cost $6. So what the hell? Went to Atlanta Braves game.
Well, I don't get.
There we go. College football campus tour. And look, that was the map from last week, bouncing all over the United States there. But let's start right there. Rockies, Braves, bonus coverage here. Cumberland, Georgia. Now, how far is Cumberland, Georgia from Atlanta?
It's about 25 miles northwest. So, we get a lot of these ballparks now that are built just outside the city. This is one of them right there.
I kind of like how MLB was leaning into stadiums in the city. So my first thing would be that kind of like, I haven't been to the stadium, so I don't know, but I'm saying that I'm like, that kind of sucks. I like it in like the downtown. Like you go to San Diego, you see Petco Park just smack dab in the middle of downtown. I think that's always the cooler option. I'm glad to see, because for a while there in like the 70s, like they were just pushing everything out to the suburbs. Let's take a look at this. Tell me about your experience there, man.
So the good thing about this place is maybe it's not downtown, but it definitely is a commercial area, maybe a mixed use area. And I enjoyed it. There's been a lot of ballparks in baseball. They've been made after the Giants Stadium in San Francisco, Camden Yards in Baltimore, and what the New York Mets Stadium was made after Ebbets Field. So it's funny because in the NFL, the trend is these indoor office buildings. Well, in baseball, it's the opposite. You go back and tap into the older stadiums, which even though, I don't follow baseball all the way, I think every guy has a dream of going to all 30 major league ballparks and doing that. And so I've been to the Turner Field for Georgia State, but this was done really well. You mentioned it was only built 7 years ago. Great, honoring all their history, especially Hank Aaron right there. But they got all the retired numbers, the Maddox, the Glavine, the Smoltz, the Dale Murphy. And then, this shot, you get to go fourth level. This is not like Wrigley. This is not like Fenway, where they will not allow you behind home plate unless you have special tickets. I got to go right up there and take that. And this is an incredible view. And again, for $6 on a Tuesday night, what would you rather do than check something like this out?
100%, man. And I mean, it is a night. Like I said, I don't normally like the stadiums that go further out from the city, but it definitely looks beautiful on the photos here. YouTube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN, as we have a bonus baseball edition for one game here. And maybe there'll be some college football played here. You never know. Look at Georgia State now. They're playing at the old Brave Stadium there, Center Park Stadium. So, yeah.
And I'll tell you that what's really fun about, so you go to a regular season baseball game, there's a couple teams that are selling out most nights. You got the Dodgers with Ohtani. You got the Padres are selling out. You got the Yankees selling out. The Phillies, there's a couple more. But on baseball, you're going to be able to navigate a stadium and take it in. And yes, in an ideal world, we always want to go to consequential games, playoff games. But sometimes, especially like on a traveler off day, there was no pressure here. I didn't get yelled at for not sitting in the right seat or have the bracelet. So, they had escalators going up and down. I packed my own food, so I was good. I didn't have to, go and try to do a $20 beer or whatever. But just being able to flow through a stadium. There's spots in the outfield with little bars where you can lean against. You don't have to have a ticket for that. So it was a cool way to check out an event, low pressure, and take it into your own leisure. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, look, an obstructed view alert too. What's the percentage on this one?
Oh, well, 0% of home plate, which is usually the thing you're trying to watch when you're watching a baseball game. And I'll tell you, I don't know how to say it other than I got a vendetta against the NFL, and so when I go to NFL stadiums, I went to the Cowboy Stadium in the Cotton Bowl last year, and I found obstructed views, and I tweeted it out, and everybody was, Jerry Jones is going to sue you and this and that. And I'm like, well, tell him to fix his ballpark. I'm not reporting anything that's not true. It's kind of the same thing with professional sports. I mean, this is a 7-year-old stadium. I'm sure I read they spent $622 million on it. And they have this like Hank Aaron terrace in left field, which is the second level. And they got all these support pillars. So all the seats in the back of left field are all blocked by these beams. And so I did a whole sweep. I thought it was good. And then I just do a stroll around the outfield and I saw it. And then it was funny because somebody recognized me. This guy named Bryce, he works at Jacksonville State. Are you the campus tour guy? I said, yeah. And we started talking about, I'm going to be going to Jacksonville State next month for a football game. But if you're at a game, you don't know anybody, and you see an obstructed view, you got to convince somebody to help you and take the photo and be the co-conspirator. So as soon as somebody said, hey, I know you, and we're standing right there, I'm like, man, you're going to be my guy today. So it got me my photos and, everybody's tagging the Atlanta Braves. Hey, why don't you fix your ballpark? That sort of thing. So again, same philosophy we always have. You can have a great ballpark and you can have an obstructed view. That being said, when you spend $622 million 7 years ago, you think you would vet all the seats probably.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive right there. Normally it's because you build around that. And we're doing a brand new one. Who gives a shit about this seat? They pay for it. Just get them in the stadium.
Exactly.
Love this. What we have does that say Clowns jersey right there?
Yeah. So these are all jerseys that Hank Aaron wore throughout his career. And so the Clowns was a Negro Leagues team that he played in before, integration. The other two are some minor league teams that he played for. And then, he started out with the Milwaukee Braves before they went to Atlanta. So, they honor, like I said, they honor the 90s Braves teams, the Dale Murphys, some other players. But, Hank Aaron is the most memorable player in franchise history. And to see the jersey progression and, realize that a guy who set the home run record, probably 50 years ago, he started his career not even being able to play Major League Baseball. So I think having those jerseys there and putting it into context for people who may not know his backstory to, show what he personally persevered in his career, but secondly, how far, our society and sports has come where you don't have a lot of those hurdles that they used to have back then. So, part historical, part educational, and you hope that these new ballparks will really, we talked about it in college sports when, if you have a couple great players, throw a statue out there, throw a banner out there. And I think the Braves did a really good job with that.
Honor your history. Yes. That's pretty awesome, dude. I'd like to check out that as well. That was Tuesday. Then Wednesday, Mississippi College, not Ole Miss, not Mississippi State, not Southern Miss. Mississippi College was playing at Shorter University, Barron Stadium, Rome, Georgia. This is 100-year-old stadium, seats 6,500. What in the hell? How did you find this game? Who told you about this game? And how was your experience there to Rome, Georgia?
So I can confidently proclaim that every day there's college football played this year, I will be at a game. Okay. And so if you go on the ESPN app and you go to the tab and you can choose top 25, FBS, ACC, FCS, there's a Division II and there's a Division III tab. And then you can go by week and you go, and I'm looking there and, halfway through the off season, I see this game on 9-5 or 9, whatever that Wednesday's date was. I think it was 9-4. And it's like Wednesday. And I saw Mississippi College. And if you do a Google search for Mississippi College and you don't put it in quotations, it's going to show you, Ole Miss and Mississippi State and all just because that's the generalization. So I found it going through there. As soon as I did 90 games in last year in 2023, everybody, can you do 100? Is 100 possible? And I kept saying no. And the combination of the extra week of the regular season, the extended playoff, and finding a couple of these off day games that you wouldn't expect. I mean, I have spreadsheets for like every NAI school, and it just is insane. So to do all that legwork and research and find one, it felt cool. And I will tell you that Twitter really came through on this. I tweeted that I was at this game, and the video when they come out, and I said, I'm at the only college football game in America, and retweets from CFB Home and Sickos Committee and College Experience and all these people. The stream was attached, and I talked to the SID there, and she was like giddy, and she said, one of the shots I show you'll show hopefully that I sent. She said the most that they ever get on a stream is like 250 to 300 viewers, and they went over 1,000 for this game. And that's just because of what college football Twitter did to bring exposure to this. So whether you consider us sickos and we'll watch anything, people actually tuned in to watch Mississippi College at Shorter on the stream on YouTube. And you can see right there under the title, it says 1,000 watching now. So that shows you the power of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's fantastic, dude. Nothing like shining a light on, because to me, college football is college football. I think that stadium heads know that. But and dude, 100-year-old stadium, it just sitting there in Rome, Georgia. Turns out Rome was not built overnight. Walk me through this stadium's history a little bit here.
Yeah, so when you walk up to the stadium, it says on the sign, it says Historic Barron Stadium. And you kind of feel like an idiot if you've never heard of a historic 100-year-old stadium. And so the benefit of finding this game was being able to learn about the stadium. This is an off-campus stadium. It's home for Rome High School in Rome, Georgia. Rome, Georgia is about an hour and 20 minutes northwest of Atlanta. High school championships played there. Shorter does not have their own on-campus stadium, so they share that. What I really like about the stadium, I sent you just a couple things. It leans into like the old school feel of it. It reminds me of Legion Field or Ladd Peebles Stadium with those light towers, specifically the old scoreboard. They had these little bleachers, metal bleachers in the end zone. It felt historic. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So you go to Legion Field and you see those towers peeking over. Same with Ladd Peebles. Like, that's distinct to Alabama. That's distinct to Georgia. And most of the stadiums we know that they moved off of that, but this is one that, whether you want to call it preserved or maintained or just not upgraded, it still looks the same. And you can see the old scoreboard there. On a previous shot, you saw the video board. So they do have a modern video board. But when you're talking about like getting the juices going of an old stadium head, and everybody wants to move past these things, to have some places that are still doing it and playing there and playing with pride and enjoying their home stadium is cool to check out. So, and it was an interesting game too. At one point, Shorter scored and they made it 9-3, and they were trying to kick the extra point and it got blocked. And then Mississippi College returned it and it was 9-5. That was the score. And then it was 16-5. And I went on, there's a Scoreagami. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it's a website that shows unique scores that have never happened in college football. And so I thought maybe 16-5 never happened. It actually happened 28 times in college football history. So, but those are the kind of things that you're investigating when you're at a
Iowa was involved in all of them.
Pretty much, yeah. 9-5 in the sixth inning. That sounds like I'm at the Braves game 2 nights in a row, right?
We got an obstructed view alert, right?
Yeah, it's almost a requirement with a classic stadium right here. So there was a main press box, and then there were these little rooms that were built, and there was people sitting there. And so sometimes you got to take these photos and just have people stare at you like you're a weirdo. And I don't mind, because this is part of the, I had somebody quote tweet one of my obstructed view photos from this week. And the guy goes, "Bruh, you got played. You know what you can do?" And like 12 of the people with the comments are like, "Dude, this is his shtick. This is his thing." So, but in person, they don't know who I am. So they just think it's this guy trying to sit with perfect posture next to a wall. And, you try to educate them later. But yeah, obstructive view, even at a 100-year-old great historic stadium like Barron Stadium.
Fantastic. And obviously 1,000 people watching. Awesome stuff. And they got that dub 29-5. I wonder how many was 29-5 though? Was that a bunch?
Well, that's another one to look at. And one thing I'll keep in mind for this episode, the home team dominated all 5 games that I went to. And you'll see Grand Valley State. I should have done the math, but if I could do the math right now, I'll say 5-3 3-3. I think there were 14 points scored by the road team in 5 games. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at these scores. So if you want to get a big home blowout, invite me to the game, and I will try to continue to deliver on my streak here. It obviously don't count Florida State last week. That doesn't count. Okay, so the streak starts in shorter. So don't bring up old shit like week 1. Okay, we're only talking about week 2 going forward.
Oh man, that's hilarious, folks. Invite them. Get that home blowout win, folks. Want to tell you the Stadium Heads podcast is. Have you ever wanted to create your own sports betting model for football? Do you even know what a sports betting model is? Well, SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the #1 AI powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, or you can just sit back and copy one of the top performing models. But I say build your own. When I press that build button, build me a model for what I like, and then Rhythm will adapt everything around that. And Rhythm gives you predictions for every game and player prop. It also has a slew of stats, research, betting trends, trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. The chat was talking about the Kansas State Arizona game. I think Arizona is going to have a tough time there at the Little Apple in Manhattan, Kansas. Judging by them, I just watched that NAU game this morning. I because on a Saturday you can't get every game and you get majority of them at the studio, but I watched that game this morning. They struggled, so I think they're going to hit some tough times there in the Little Apple. So what are you doing? Hop on over there. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. All right, we are back. So Wednesday he catches that game. Then Thursday he goes to Lubbers Stadium there, Central State. Love their logo there. Is that Lubbers or Lubers Stadium at Grand Valley State? So Central State at Grand Valley State. That's in Allendale, Michigan. I know Grand Valley State because Brian Kelly coached there for a long time. They've had a great program for a while. And Central State, if you follow the D2 ranks, and I think they played for a national championship recently. 51 years old. This stadium is in Allendale. Seats 10,500. Michael, tell me about your experiences to Grand Valley State. I also have a video. You let me know when to play this thing.
Yeah, so flew from Atlanta to Detroit. It's about 2 hours and 40 minutes west to Allendale, Michigan. And this year with the schedule, they did not do many late changes. In previous years, they've added a Sunday game. They've added an on-campus game. They've added this night. It was the Chiefs and the Ravens opening up the NFL stadium. There was no Division I game. There was about 35 D2 games, and I wanted just to pick out the stadium that interests me the most. And you mentioned the history at Grand Valley State. They've been a dominant D2 team for a while, and I just decided this is where I want to go. And man, it was a great decision to go there because I've been to the stadium before and I was impressed with it. It's a legit, FCS G5 feeling stadium, but I did not expect the crowd to be like that. So if you want to play the video of them taking the field, go for it.
Let's go. I mean, look at that, folks. I mean, that is for a D2 school to deliver that. And the photos will reflect it too. But I was shocked when you sent me over this stuff and I was putting this slideshow together. I was like, God damn, they're putting together look at that thing. That's better than a lot of FCS Group of 5. Shit, that is very impressive there for the Grand Valley State Lakers. Tell me about your experiences, man.
Well, I had a great time, and I got a credential. They took care of me. Everybody this week except Indiana took care of me, and then fans of Indiana sent me a bunch of tickets, so I got taken care of. But this school, they do it first class. There's no way that if you didn't say anything and you went to this game, you would think this is a D2 school. You would think you're walking into Montana State, or your upper echelon outdoor FCS school, or even a G5 school. And what I really liked about this stadium was 10,000 seats, but there's plenty of room for standing only. So this end zone that we're looking from, it was all students and band, and they had thunder sticks. And I'm thinking back to the 2002 World Series Braves and Giants with the rally monkey and stuff. But those things, they were lit. These were people, their first game. They were packed in these stands an hour before. The weather for the first half was incredible. The second half, it rained like hell. But the opposite end zone is just a hill, a grass hill. And they filled that thing up. And, man, they translated that momentum from the stands onto the field. And this is a case where the students were in session for the first game. During week one, Stanford and a couple other schools were not in session. But look, this Central State this was a money game, and they came and they got beat 58-0. And it was, kind of
they're D3, right? They're D3, but they played in the Natty. I feel like if not last year, then the year before.
Well, check this out. Week one, they played at Morehead State, which is an FCS school, and they lost 17-10. They come here and they get beat 58-0. So it's kind of the same thing in the FCS when you see Montana State go and play New Mexico and run for 300 yards on the ground and beat them. And, then somebody comes and New Mexico plays another team and they beat, and you're like, how does this make sense? So they really just are a powerhouse. But there are so many cool things about this place. There's another photo. We'll get to the pub shed that they had, but just environment wise, I went to 5 games, including P4 Indiana, and this was the most, enthusiastic crowd of the week. So, people were telling me, hey, you think this is good? Their rival is Ferris State, and they've won national championships at the D2 level. So when you tap into this stuff, that's part of the, okay, when you're putting out your schedule and people see that you're going to a D2 or you're going to an FCS school, some people will make comments that you're not going to big games. But I've been to South Dakota Mines a couple of years ago, and they parked 350 cars around the stadium. You could honk your horn while you're watching the game, and the scene, it just makes you want to be there. Colorado Mines in Golden, Colorado, that's another D2. It's like 7,000 foot elevation. You got people paragliding and parasailing above you, and they got this giant mountain with the M on it, and that looks cool. So this is almost like partway educational to go to these places. And as I said, there was about 30, 35 D2 games, and I just knew that this would be the one. And it really, it caught a lot of fire on social media. So I was glad to be able to showcase this. And for me, I can vouch and I can say that this is an awesome place to watch a football game. And, you may be watching, you want to go see your 12th game at Spartan Stadium at Michigan State, or do you want to go watch another game at Waldo Stadium in Western Michigan? Maybe instead of that, maybe you want to try going to check out a game at Allendale in Grand Valley State.
Hell yeah, man. And Ferris State, at the studio, we have like a 9 TV setup. And for a while there, I didn't do it this year, but for a while there, we would put them on pretty much every week because they were starting they were awesome. Their uniforms were fun. And I know Grand Valley State fans listen to this want to vomit, but they took a lacrosse player of the year from John Hopkins, I believe, and they put him at quarterback, grad transfer, and he was fucking awesome. And they won an Natty with doing that, and that kind of became like a team we got behind in the studio. And I love the fact they got this rivalry too, man. It's some great, especially you get into these winter months, a lot of snow games and stuff. So this is awesome. This makes me want to. And what geographically? This is this is on the western side of Michigan, correct?
Yeah. So it's northwest of Kalamazoo, but it's not as far north as Mount Pleasant, which is central Michigan, which is the northernmost one there. But you mentioned Ferris State. This, Michigan and Wisconsin, they're like undercover great D2, D3 schools. And that rivalry, I've been to Ferris State Stadium. It is nothing like this. And this just when I saw that end zone, the far one filled up, there's like the sunset hit. And I've been in a lot of stadiums where there's no one in those. And I know it's the opener and I know you get excitement and it's different, but this is the kind of thing where if you're a freshman and this is your first, you've been in classes for 2 weeks and your first college experience, and you go to that game and you see this place is lit and they threw up like 28 points in the first quarter, it will sell you for the rest of your college career. Like, I got to go to the game. Okay. There's other things going on. We could party at, after the game, but I got to go to the game. And I'm glad everybody did. At halftime, it was 30-0 and it started raining. It started raining like hell. And it cleared. That's the photo I'm talking about right there. That's 1 minute after kickoff. And so, a lot of times I try to take photos in the beginning because it's when the lighting is the best and people will say, oh, you got to wait a little bit longer to let the crowd show. The crowd was already there. So, as I mentioned with the theme of this, the home team's dominating. Final score, 58-0, Grand Valley State. And I sent you the box score. I don't know if you put the box score up there, but it is one of the craziest box scores that I ever saw in my life. That right there. First downs, 28-4. Rushing yards, 511-36. Total offense, 620-62. They ran 40 plays for 62 yards, so they're getting like 1.5 yards a play. They had 3 100-yard rushers. I'd never seen anything like, and they called off the dogs at the end. So 29-5 on Wednesday, 58-0 on Thursday.
Unfucking believable. And what is this right here? When you go, first off, shout out to that. Nice scoreboard too.
That's the opposite side of the students. So this is student spillover on a grass hill, and there's nowhere to stand. So this is like App State. At a smaller scale. Yeah. App State has the hill. Listed capacity for App State is 30,000. They regularly get 30, 35, 36. They got 40 a couple times. This is the same kind of thing where it's expandable to 20,000. I don't know what criteria they have to say, okay, it's time to expand. But you get crowds like this consistently, maybe you should. But right now, it makes for an incredible scene to literally be standing room only everywhere you look.
Yeah, and shout out to Matt Dix in the chat. It says wasn't Brian Kelly and I believe Chuck Martin, who's the won the MAC with Miami, Ohio last season. I believe they were all at Grand Valley. Grand Valley's had a good program for a while. And then this
4 national championships.
Yeah, 4 national championships. There we go. And where is this like in terms of the field and everything? Because we're looking at a shed. YouTube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. What are you looking at here? What explain this?
So this tweet went really viral, and I try to showcase things that are different. And we've had end zone suites, we've had rented sheds, pop-up, all these things. But this is in the tailgate area, and so they call it a pub shed. And for $4,000 a season, you can get this provided inside. If you go to the interior photo, there's a bar that you can stock. There is a heater. There is a television. There is outside. They have picnic tables. They have tents. And, the difference to me here is that when you park, there's already levels of parking. So there's a VIP parking lot and you're separated from other people. That's a thing that you can purchase to have a superior experience. But when you tailgate in the VIP lot, is no different than tailgating at the general lot. You do it the exact same way. So this is something that is an incentive, and it adds to that VIP experience. And, you have access to it off game days, so you can go and load it up. You don't have to try to do everything, 3 hours before the game. As I mentioned, there's tents, and especially in Michigan, this is clutch for cold days, and there's a heat lamp and there's a TV in there. And so the reason this tweet went viral is because everybody was tagging their AD. I saw the Army AD and the New Mexico State AD and all that. And, a couple of people are making comments like everyone should have this. This is something where it doesn't take up very much space, and it's an incentive for people to want to be not only be part of the tailgate scene, but be part of the tailgate scene right next to the stadium to give optics like this game is a big fucking deal, no matter who it is. And so, after the game, if it wasn't raining like hell, like it was literally just dumping. And so what they told me is usually that the players will come and the coaches will come up and they have these blue shots. It's the Lakers is the name of the team, and so they take these blue shots, and it's a tradition. But this thing went viral because $4,000 for, let's say, 7 home games by, let's say, 8 people chip in. It's not even that expensive, and to have it divvied out to you with premier parking privileges, stock it in any way you want, have people come and stop by. It's, someone said brilliant. And the fact that this is at a D2 school and I haven't seen it anywhere else, I expect these things to be popping up at a lot of other schools here in the near future.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is genius. For so many reasons here. Like, yes, you can supply your own bar. Alcohol prices are insane. I mean, dude, I as someone that consumes, I can tell you plenty of stories where I ran into someone, just at the stadium. I ended up saying, "Oh, dude, been a long time. Let me buy some drinks." Next thing you know, you're spending $250. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And to have this, and then also look, you got a slow cooker there. It looks like in the photo, you can set up some brisket or something, or some chili, whatever. I see mac and cheese. This is like a perfect thing. Hey, it's cold. It's end of the third quarter. Let's go to the hut. We can do some blue Grand Valley State Laker shots and have some nachos, some hot chocolate, whatever the fuck you need. This thing is awesome. This I got to admit, out of all the ones I was like, what the hell is this? This is very intriguing. Yeah. Ryan Hasty in the chat wants to live there. He says, shout out to him.
That's what I thought too. I was like, are they doing it? Like, if people joke that they want to live in the storage unit, it's like they spray potato bugs under there. You can't do that. But yeah, I thought the same thing. And again, this is what you try to do, especially when we're talking about getting eyeballs. We got the Chiefs and the Ravens opening the NFL season, defending champ, rematch of the AFC Championship. What is something people would look off of that game for? It's this kind of stuff. So in many ways, Grand Valley State, their football account followed me. Really, just first class treatment all the way. And the reward here is, not only do I get that individual experience where I can vouch for it, but, fortunately I have a platform where I can share this stuff for other people. And whether it inspires you to maybe go check out a Grand Valley State game on your own, or maybe you're not geographically close to that, maybe it inspires you to start talking to your own team's athletic department about putting something up like this similar. And you could see the shed. I mean, it's quality looking, but this is not anything that you would think would be cost prohibitive. And especially if you can lock in a bunch of people, I think that they did like a 4-year commitment on it, these people, and they were actually the parents of the center, and he was going to graduate, and there's a waiting list. And when he graduates, they're going to, give up their pub shed, and then someone else will get it. But, you build a bunch of these, then you won't have as much of a waiting. So anyways, I thought it was brilliant, and I wanted to showcase it, and people on social media not only agreed, but they tagged their athletic departments and like, put this for us now. We need this.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. That thing is really cool. Box score is ridiculous. YouTube.com/@StadiumHeads SGPN. And from there, what was that? I'm assuming you drove. Is that a drive or is that a flight from wherever? Was that is it Grand Valley, Michigan? Allendale. Is that what it is? Allendale, Michigan to Bloomington.
Yeah, so this was the same situation with Florida, driving from Florida State to Atlanta. So I rented the car in Detroit. I landed in Detroit at 9 a.m. and I wanted to swap out the car. Bloomington is about 50 miles south of the Indianapolis airport. So it was about 4.5 hour drive. The first 2 hours, it was raining really, really hard. And, that was probably the 8th or 9th day consecutive I'd been on the road. I had probably a 9 or 10 hour window to drive 4.5 hours. So when it got, it's 1 o'clock in the morning and you got 185 miles to go, I just pulled over and, stopped at a gas station and just sat there and tried to let it die down a little bit. Sometimes it's better to use caution. If you got 3 hours and, you got 2.5 hour drive, you got to go for it, but you got to be smart about it. And so I made sure that I got to the Indianapolis airport, got it there at 9, swapped cars. And then, as I mentioned, it's only about an hour drive to Bloomington. So Had plenty of time to, work out and get food and do all that, and tailgate, and made it in plenty of time for a 7 p.m. local kickoff at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah. Hell yeah. There you go. Hoosier stands in here. He says, how about them Hoosiers? He's buying in to Curt Cignetti and those Indiana Hoosiers as well. And with good reason, because good God, this game was a bloodbath, but obviously, we did the Big Ten episode earlier where we talked about all the Big Ten stadiums. And this one was one that I didn't think off the top of my head would be one of substantial value, but after doing that episode and I just am kind of sold on this being a very sleek, good looking stadium there. Tell me about your travels again to Bloomington.
So go back about 15 years. I don't know if this is a stadium that you would say is noteworthy. So if you go to that first photo, when we did the Big Ten episode, they had done 2 end zone expansions in the 2010 and 2014. Originally, the stadium was just home side and roadside, and they filled in 2010 one of the end zones, the north end zone, the other one the south. And this is the exterior of the south end zone, I believe. And I think it's north end zone. I did a tweet and I just put this photo. I said, the exterior of the north end zone at Memorial Stadium is a work of art. And it really just looks like an artistic, architectural masterpiece. The way it is, it looks like old with the big windows. It looks like a cathedral type setup. And, this went lit on social media as well. And then if you go to the second picture, we love Memorial Stadium. And this one is named after is named that. And there's actually like military paraphernalia out there. So one of them is like the hull of the USS Indiana, which was a ship that was decommissioned. And then there's some like turrets there that you could sit in. And I don't know if I think it's from World War II, because the stadium was built in 1960. I will tell you a little bit of intel that I got that was very disappointing. And maybe it's because there's a lot of Memorial Stadiums, but I was told that they are actively seeking someone to get the naming rights for this place. And so, they're in the Big Ten, you have Memorial Stadium in Illinois, you have Memorial Stadium in Nebraska, and you have Memorial Stadium in Indiana. So a lot of people will say Indiana Memorial Stadium. They will put the school in there. So we get it that maybe you want to differentiate yourself, but I can't really think, I know there's Kroger Field at Kentucky. I know that UCF is now FBC Mortgage Stadium. Houston is TDECU Stadium, but both of those are new additions to the P4. There's not very many long-standing P4. I know Vanderbilt is like First Bank Stadium or whatever. There's not many big-time, long-standing Big Ten SEC schools that have corporate names. And so they got to be real careful about what they do. But that being said, as it is right now, it feels like a Memorial Stadium. And I love this shot because they run one of the biggest, this is like a Texas-sized American flag. They run it up there. And as a person who, tries to really put effort into photos, timing them out, you get a lot of, you're going to work and see if the wind is flapping in the right way. And this is one where you give the wide perspective of the stadium. You got to keep in mind that this was Western Illinois, an FCS school who I don't think has won a game since 2021. So a clear money game. I was also told that they had a series with Louisville that was a
that's correct.
Home, and they paid $2 million to get out of it. And so we don't respect that. But that being said, that's why Western Illinois was here. And that's why this crowd looked like this.
Yeah. And that if you follow, I host the College Football Experience podcast at TCE on SGPN on Twitter. And we called that out. There's been a couple instances recently. Indiana canceled a series with Louisville. Michigan canceled a series with UCLA prior to the Big Ten news. Like if you're wondering the past 2 years, why is Michigan's schedule so light when they won made the playoffs both years, they canceled a home and home with UCLA. The same can be said. Tennessee paid Army $1 million not to be playing Army last season. I think it was. We hate this stuff. Come on. Like, I don't understand it. What, are you really that scared? Like, I don't understand how, like, Kurt Cignetti, and I know he has nothing to do with this decision because he wasn't employed when they canceled it, but he comes to Big Ten media days and we're not afraid of anybody. We'll take on anybody. And it's like, well, I wish your university shared that same sentiment, because you did care. You cared $2 million worth to not play Louisville. So, the stadium, though, is a great looking stadium, and I really like the press box. That photo with the flag is amazing, by the way. And Western Illinois used to be a really proud program, by the way. They've been horrible lately, but you go back through their history, they were really good for a long time there. I hope the Leathernecks get back to it. This game was a fucking bloodbath, though. I stopped watching it. I think the final score was 70-something to 3, right?
77-3.
Unbelievable. But the stadium is
big of a. Yeah, this is as big as a blowout as the Grand Valley State. You know, there was a lot of tweets about the record that they set for yardages and all that. And so on one hand, you start out the year with a win over FIU and a win over Western Illinois, and you just throttle both of them. Now you see UCLA play week 1 at Hawaii and barely scrape out a game. That feels like a very winnable game, which it very well could be. And then the week after that, they host Charlotte. There's a lot of people feeling very confident that Indiana is going to be 4-0. But when you play this level of competition, you really don't know what you have. And so, Louisville is not like necessarily like Clemson or Florida State in the ACC. So you don't think about dodging them because you want to stay a certain way. But that being said, they destroyed them. But walking around the stadium, appreciating both those end zones. And again, you can see that big, I know it's a small thing, but it's almost like, it's like a decorative piece to your photo. I don't know how to explain it other than like, it's just a cool thing to have. And if you look in the back left, that's Assembly Hall, very famous basketball arena for the Indiana Hoosiers there. You get all the vibes in this place. And so I've been there for 2 games. In 2019, I saw them play Ohio State and I saw them play Northwestern, but 2 games I saw them play. And this place was filled up. But they weren't as optimistic as they are right now, which we love, because you don't want to think that there's just a permanent pecking order in Power 4 conferences. And that's why we get excited when, Ole Miss is coming up in the SEC, or, right now Boston College, maybe they're going to make a move in the ACC. These Oklahoma State, maybe now that Oklahoma and Texas are out of the Big 12, maybe it's their year. So these are the kinds of things we like. So I love the optimism, and I love hearing Indiana fans chirp, because you haven't heard that for a long time. That being said, this is not any way to get a barometer for your football team playing Western Illinois.
True. Very, very true. Stadium looks great, though. I'll say that. They've done a good job with their stadium. Obstructed view alert. What is the percentage on this one here?
So we said 64%. That's what we said in the tweet. And I like this one because it's right next to the suites. They try to put up some paper there, so the important people don't have to look at the commoners there. But in my tweet for the obstructed view, I said, okay, maybe you can't see the touchdown scored in the south end zone, but you can do 2 things. You could check out the video board in the north end zone, and you can kind of uncomfortably stare at the people in the press box who are trying to avoid you at all costs. But during the spring game, they only allowed fans on the other side of the stadium. They want to consolidate the concessions. They want to consolidate the security, so they don't have to pay people to watch everybody. And in 2019, I wasn't doing obstructed views. I wasn't even thinking about it. And so when I was at the spring game, I looked across and I thought there would be obstructed views. And so I did tailgate. I tailgated a little bit, but with 90 minutes, they opened the gates 90 minutes before, and I said, I got to get in there and find it. And so found it, but you always want to wait and try to take the photo during the game is on. So you note the seat location, you note the percentage, you pre-write your tweet, you have it all ready to go. Then you got to find a co-conspirator and get the photo. So I felt like this would be there, but I didn't know for sure until I got into the stadium 90 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah. That's great though. Absolutely
and
great.
Final score 77-3. So we got 29-5, 58-0, 77-3. So
Yeah, and you haven't even hit the weekend yet, as that was Friday night.
And one last thing. I put a tweet out of the scoreboard, and it said Hoosiers win. It said 77-3, and I put in all caps. We stay till the end. That's what I put, and everybody, that went pretty crazy on Twitter too. So that's what you do. I mean, if it's been 5 years since I've been to Memorial Stadium? Okay. The only thing I got to do is drive back to the Indianapolis airport and fly to Hartford, 5:45 flight. So do I want to leave with 12 minutes in the fourth quarter at 9:45, or do I just stay for the last quarter, soak up another 12 minutes of game time in Memorial Stadium, not knowing if and when I'll ever be back there, So that's what you do.
Yeah.
So you stay till the end, and if people don't believe you stay till the end, take a photo of when the clock says 0 and they put the graphic on there that the team wins. There's no way that could be disputed.
Yeah. And then on Saturday, so you go from Bloomington, you fly out of Indianapolis?
Yep.
All right, Indianapolis. I've done that airport before. So what are you flying into? NYC? Are you flying into Hartford? What are you flying into?
Yeah, BDL. So I got back to Indianapolis about midnight. There's a little Shell station kind of travel center right within the confines of the airport. Parked the car there and kind of slept, hung out till 4 a.m. Went through security and went from Indy to Dulles in Washington, D.C., and then it connected to Hartford, and I got there at 9:45 a.m. Sacred Heart game at 1 p.m. About an hour and 10-minute drive.
Unbelievable. St. Anselm at, I like to say this, fucking Sacred Heart. But Sacred Heart, Sacred Heart made the FCS playoffs not that long ago. Campus Field, Fairfield, Connecticut, 31-year-old stadium, seats 10,500. Tell me about this matchup, because, hey, I kind of dig this stadium here. I got a little forest in the background. It's just kind of a cool look. People, I don't think people are aware that Sacred Heart's in Connecticut, because a lot of people think just UConn or Central Connecticut State. There's others. Yale, Sacred Heart. Connecticut's kind of a college football state in a way. How was the game, man?
So the game was a rainy game. Final score 10-3. St. Anselm, I didn't know where it was located. It's a D2 school from New Hampshire. So Sacred Heart has been in the, I think they were in the NEC for a few years, and this year they just went independent. And so you have to schedule games. You got to get people. And so when you're doing non-con, they don't have non-con, but they go after other people. So you schedule a D2 nearby. And I saw Sacred Heart in the playoffs a couple of years ago. They played Delaware. Their running back, his name was Julius something. And he made.
Was it Julius Chestnut?
Exactly. Julius Chestnut.
Yeah.
And he just made the 53-man roster of the Tennessee Titans. So you can say it's small-time football, but we got a guy who is a running back in the NFL from this school. And I will tell you that a couple things. First of all, if you're trying to reach the goal of see a game at every FCS school, you have to know what the schedule does. And the Northeast has a ton of schools that need to be checked off. And you got Stonehill and Merrimack and Central Connecticut State and Wagner and Sacred Heart and Colgate, and you could go on and on. And a lot of those stadiums don't have lights. A lot of times after October 1st, they don't play night games. And so when you're thinking about you're trying to also set a record and go to 100 college football games, you need to see 2 games on every Saturday. So you think about doubling those up with FBS schools. Well, the Northeast only has a couple. It's got Army, it's got Boston College, it's got UMass, Connecticut. There's a couple up there, but just not that many. So when you can get a Sacred Heart game at 1 and then it's hour drive to Central Connecticut State, you got to do that. And so you spend a little time up there, because the reason I'm doing that specifically is if my goal is at the end of 2026 to be the only person in the world to have seen a game at every FBS and every FCS school, which is 262 Division I schools, you got to be as efficient as possible. So this is one where, of course, you want to go to the stadium, you want to put boots on the ground. But this is a business trip to knock out 2 in one day, because you don't want 2026 to be every Saturday going in the Northeast, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But dude, the stadium's cool, man. I like it. I mean, it's definitely, it has the track, but I kind of like the, I say forest. I know that I toss around that lightly. And they, by the way, they still have the MAAC sign on the scoreboard, which is interesting.
Got to fix that.
Yeah, got to fix that. But Sacred Heart was in the playoffs not long ago. See, this is a cool look for it.
Yeah,
what's
that?
up? I was going to say, how was the the score turnout? Was this a blowout?
It was only 10-3, and it was because of the weather. It rained the whole time. In one of the end zones they had, it was called the Outpost, and it was, you can kind of see the tent in the bottom right there, but maybe there's another shot that shows it. But there was an area, it was a little bit of a premium area. You pay money, you get a bracelet. It's in the back corner, you can see there. So there were some people sitting there to avoid the rain, but I think this is par for the course in the Northeast. You got out the weather. There was a good turnout on the roadside for St. Anselm. And, it's a cool setup because everything is really in close proximity. The basketball arena is right there. And yes, there's a track, but in a lot of schools, they have limited real estate to be able to do something. And everything comes down to finance. If you're an FBS school, there's no reason to have a track. If you're a serious FCS school, there's no reason to have a track. And so when you go further down in the divisions, you have more patience for it because there's just not as much flowing money. But that being said, they got the modern turf. They have, they got lights, which not everybody has. They have a modern video board. And I will tell you that these kind of stops sometimes are refreshing, because if you just went to every SEC game and there's 80,000 people and they're just cutthroat and yelling at each other, you might get burned out if you're trying to do 70 or 80 of those games. So I like that I could be able to jump into different environments and enjoy it for what it is. So this was FCS school number 81, and the ultimate goal is to get to 129. And, I was happy to check it off.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, it's interesting the jump to independent. I know they're playing in this Yankee Bowl game, against who is it? Drawing a blank on who it was right now. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's Merrimack.
I thought they went independent too, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think both of them went independent. We'll see what happens to them. I would love to see a resurgence of the Yankee conference. Obviously, the chat's talking about Quinnipiac. They have a great hockey program, decent basketball program. Be great to see them get their football program up and started and just get a lot more Northeast action going, because I think Sacred Heart, they've been to the FCS playoffs recently. Blueprint's there.
And the Northeast, we talked about when we did, Army, and we talked about, it was the center of college football a long time ago. And, I'm happy because, we live in California. If you're not a big school, they just kill off your program. So, I don't know all the reasons why Sacred Heart went independent, but they maintained FCS status and they didn't kill a program. And, St. Anselm is a D2 and they're playing. So it's not the same level of football that it was, 70, 80, 90 years ago in the Northeast, but at least they're still playing. And I think we've also talked about small college football as a moneymaker for schools. Keep the travel regional. These guys are not spending money on NIL and scholarships and all that stuff. So this is one where you can have the prestige of having a football program at your school and have it be a moneymaker, and not have all your other sports and your administration and your teachers that resent the attention the football program gets, because this is something that contributes to everybody and is not like a money sucker. It actually contributes. So that's cool that you get to see that stuff in the Northeast, which west of Texas, we don't really have anything like it.
Yeah, I'm still hoping to be the catalyst on a renaissance for Northeast football. Let's go. You pulled off a 2-for-1 when you did this. you went at the same time to Fordham at Connecticut State, the real Blue Devils, as they're saying in the chat. Arute, is that Arute? I'm
yeah. So you know the announcer Jack Arute, remember ABC?
Yes,
that guy.
yes.
Yeah, it's named after his family.
Hell yeah, Root Field there, New Britain, Connecticut, 23 years old, seats 5,500 as the Fordham Rams, who have been an FCS playoff team of late too. Like if you don't have to go that far back to see Fordham, Tim DeMorat was a really good quarterback for them, played for the Redskins for a little bit. They had some really good wideouts that I feel like transferred up and had some success. Tell me about your travels to see the real Blue Devils, and I love this press box.
Yeah, so this stadium, first of all, is about an hour drive from Sacred Heart. So Yale, New Haven is in between there. I have not been to a game at Yale, but everyone has told me that I got to go to the Harvard game, and they play at Harvard this year. So I think I'm going to go there next year to check that off, get a big crowd at the Yale Bowl, do it right. But this stadium is a clear step up from Campus Field. This built more recently. Bigger and no track, and you mentioned the press box looks cool. I love the Blue Devils. They painted with the white end zone with the blue logo.
Great end zone. Great end zone. Yeah.
Great end zone. I will tell you that there were some ominous clouds hanging above the press box right around kickoff time, and everybody was saying, "And it's going to start raining. It's going to start raining." And it's like literally they kicked the ball, and the floodgates opened. And it just started dumping. And I had a jacket laying on the bleachers, and I was standing at the 50-yard line because I always do my video when they take the field. And it just rained on the inside of my jacket. What are you going to do for the rest of the game? So, but it was worth it. This game was very notable. You know, we started out at the beginning of the episode talking about upsets. Fordham was a 24-point favorite in this game, and at no point did they have a chance. I mean, Central Connecticut State, I don't know all the dynamics about, you know, what they've done and what they're supposed to do, but they absolutely just beat the hell out of Fordham. And it was surprising. And you know, when you go to a smaller game like this, you can hear parents individually saying something. And Central Connecticut State was up, I think it was 16-0, because they got 2 touchdowns and they blocked a punt and got a safety. And Fordham drove it down to the 2-yard line, and they kicked a field goal. And right after that, Central Connecticut State scored, and they made it 23-3. And this fan, I think it was a parent for Fordham, he goes, 3 points? You're going for fucking 3? And he just, for like 5 minutes, it was just over and over. And it's like, the coach could hear it. And I totally agreed with them. You know, you mentioned when we were talking about Troy Taylor last week, going for those crazy ones, and you said something about Mike Leach going for a 4th and 3 and trying to get a litmus test if his team came to play or not. That right there, 16-0 on the 2, you know, score and make it 16-7 and we're right in it, or don't score and look, we didn't come to play. And that was that guy's point. So this game was it was very surprising to those who set the line on it, as Fordham being 24-point favorites.
Yeah, unbelievable. Nice upset there for the Blue Devils. And look, this is a cool stadium. I'd like to get there. They're still in the NEC, so they're still playing ball at the NEC. If you're ever trying to catch a game, get the NEC app. It's just free to download in the App Store and Google Play Store. And
that was funny too, because during the rain delay, or it wasn't a rain delay, but a lot of parents hid. They were watching the game on the app while it was going on. So good knowledge there with the app.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've been a fan for a while of the NEC, so I tune in to get my Long Island Sharks and my Central Connecticut State Blue Devils. I host the FCS College Football Experience, so check that out, folks, if you get a chance. Yeah, I actually like the stadium a lot. I think I would agree with you. It's a step up from Sacred Heart. And what a huge win for the program. We'll see what they can do, because Fordham's been very good lately.
Very good. Very powerful offense, and so this was a surprise. Who knows? You know, this when you another thing that it does. So going to Grand Valley State, all of a sudden you care a little bit more about D2 football and maybe you'll track the playoff. This is the kind of thing where when you go to a game and everybody tells you one team's going to dominate and the other team does the exact opposite, it makes you kind of intrigued about what else is going to happen this season? Is Central Connecticut State all of a sudden going to be the surprise team in the NAC? They're going to make a run. So what this game did, obviously now this is FCS school number 82 out of 129. It puts me 47 away. So, it accomplishes that. But now I've seen Central Connecticut State in person. I've seen them pull a big upset, and I'm interested to see how the rest of their season goes.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. That's part of being a stadium head and a college football junkie is catching on. Like, to me, there is no bad college football. You know what I mean? You can watch D2, D3. It's all there for you. And it's, to me, a much purer form. Any of it. I mean, FBS, FCS, D2, D3, NAIA. It's all there. I find it much more pure than the NFL personally. Yeah, that's a cool one. I'd like to get to Central Connecticut State. And you did some stops on the way of all this travel over the week. You checked in on it like you're checking on a great uncle's health. You stopped by Kennesaw State, Kennesaw, Georgia, and I know they had a home opener. I unfortunately took them on the money line against Louisiana. That did not hit, but cool that you checked in. What was the motivation? You were just going past. How far out of the way was this?
So this was between the Braves game and Rome, Georgia. So we stopped there, and right off the bat, I know this makes you happy. This is a real grass stadium, and they're mowing it. And
thank you.
There's no reason that everybody in a climate like Georgia should not be having grass. And I get it with the maintenance and all this, but they're taking pride. Like, it's not done, and they're getting ready for their FBS debut. That was the first game that was held there. So, anytime I can drop by the kids, as you mentioned, and check these out. And a lot of times, again, I will say, I've had people make comments about, oh, you just go to the game and you get out of there. Well, maybe you can't see everything at the stadium on that game trip. But if you make it a point to plot out stadium visits on the way to these other places, there, other than the people that were working on the field, and I think there was a ladies track team doing bleachers. Other than that, I have the stadium to myself. There's nobody telling me to leave. There's no time limit. There's no restrictions. You can go around. So this is the only, they moved up to FBS this year. I've never seen a game at Kennesaw State. They joined the CUSA, who plays all those weeknight games in October. I believe it's October 23rd. I will be there, and it will check off 134 out of 134 in FBS. But this is the kind of way where when I go there on October 23rd, I'll know how to get through the stadium. No problem.
Shout out to Kevin Marshall. Says Kennesaw Mountain Battlefield is worth seeing next time. Sherman got his bloody nose there in 1864. Just coming in hot with some Civil War. Look, as a guy that grew up in the DC area, that it was like mandatory in school to go to, Gettysburg and Manassas battlefield and stuff. That's a part that the West just doesn't. Look, the West has some cool stuff, because it was the Wild West.
Like Gold Rush,
Gold Rush stuff. You can go to like deserted towns that used to be gold mining towns, and Tombstone and the OK Corral and all that shit. But and those are all really cool. But seeing some Civil War battlefields, well worth it. Yeah. I was also you're going to Richmond. I know you're not going to have time, but I'm saying they had this guy Alexander. I think it's Alexander the Great. Alexander or France. Oh no, I'm sorry, not Alexander. Peter Francisco in Richmond was a key fighter in the Civil War. Or no, the Revolutionary War. He was a 7-foot dude back then. It was an immigrant from Portugal that comes over, and George Washington credited him as winning this big ass battle. He was like, we were stacked against this. He formed the Virginia militia. And they rode up to Jersey where this battle was. And he shows up right at the right time because they're kind of getting their ass whooped by the British. And Peter Francisco, who was 7 foot and has this gigantic fucking sword, it's in a museum there in Richmond, Virginia. Right. And he just, the legend is that he just, as a 7 foot dude, everyone was just terrified because back then people were shorter too. So you're just like, holy fuck, Yeah. Anyway, that's in Richmond, Virginia, at some museum that I went to. That I went down a rabbit hole for like a couple of weeks. Even ordered a book from Amazon to read about Peter Francisco. But anyway, Kennesaw State, they're trying to be the Peter Francisco of the FBS as they jumped up from the FCS. And that's a cool stadium to check out, man. I love how you just like, oh, I'm traveling. Let me just pop in and check it out. Let me just see what they're doing over there. Make sure they're not fucking it up. You know what I mean? And I'm excited about them. I know that they, I'm actually a little mad at them that they ditched the full on triple option. A little bit mad, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But still, they're doing the Jamie Chadwell, spread option. But yeah, I'm mad at them too because they didn't cover against Louisiana as well. You also stopped by Barry University Valhalla Stadium. What a great name for a stadium. Mountain Berry, Georgia, 9 years old, seats 2,500. How the fuck did you even know about Berry College? I know you have a spreadsheet with all these schools, but I mean, this is impressive. You were deep sea diving, man.
Yeah. So I've actually, this is not the first time that I've been there, so I knew about it. But sometimes people in the comments, they'll see me do a stadium visit at Kennesaw State and they know I'm going to Rome and they'll say something like, hey, before you go, make sure you check out Barry. And if it's proximate and it's a small school, you'll have no problem getting in. And so 9-year-old stadium, D3, have it to yourself. It's worth 10 minutes to take a lap. And, only 2,500 seats. They're the Vikings, so it gives you like a cool look. And again, this is one where you don't ever know what's going to happen. I never thought I was going to see a game that's shorter. And then all of a sudden it pops up on a Wednesday all by itself. And I'm all about shorter. I'm there. I'm doing the whole thing. Historic Barron Stadium, 100 years old. So who knows what happens? Maybe I want a 2-for-1 West Georgia someday because they're a new addition to FCS. Everybody around them is on the road. Maybe Barry is playing at noon and West Georgia is playing at 6 and you go check it out. So this is just, again, what else are you going to do? I know you're talking up war battlegrounds, but I'm going to go to Barry Stadium over over Vicksburg here.
Over Antietam. Yeah.
I mean, if I have time for both, I'll do it. But if it's a face-off between Valhalla and Vicksburg, I'm going to be going to Valhalla.
Fair. Yeah. All right. Look, I feel like if we're going to get Michael out on the Civil War battlefields, it will be one of those Civil War reenactment groups.
No, that would probably be the only way to do it. Yeah, I did go to the Gettysburg place. I went to the Gettysburg place, but they have like a welcome center, and then you got to take a bus to the actual thing. I was like, I don't got time for this. I got to go to other stadiums, So
yeah,
but yeah, exactly.
The thought of wearing that much denim in like fucking in September or late August. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how they did it back then. I still believe that multiple soldiers died from swamp ass. We'll have to do a deeper dive on that moving forward.
When your boy Francisco is just cleaning up shop. Everybody's stuck in their boots, right?
That's what I'm saying. Peter Francisco, no problem with swamp ass. He was just dominating.
Was he really that great, or just did all the other soldiers suffer from extreme swamp ass? That's the book, the deep dive you need to be doing.
That's true. I'm working on that one right now. All right. Look for it at stores coming soon. This is a follow-up to Swamp Ass 3 that I wrote earlier. But
let me know the release date. I'm on it for you.
But dude, this stadium is great. I like this little, I mean, it's a small little section for fans, but it's got a cool, clean look to it, man.
It just feels like me and you are from California. We live in California. It's hectic. And when you go to a place, you talk about the greenery, look at the trees behind there. It just makes you think about what life is in another place. And for some people, this is the biggest deal there is, and it's just nice to be able to go on all ends of the spectrum because it makes you appreciate what we have in college football. Like 14 of the 16 largest stadiums in the world are American college football stadiums. And then on the other side, there's kids who for the last 9 years on this field have spilled blood, sweat, and tears for, they're not getting scholarships. They're paying their tuition. You're probably working jobs and all that. So it's the amount of respect. And also it's 9 years old. This got planned out very recently, and this is a big accomplishment for the university. So well worth the stop.
Valhalla Stadium has a fucking great ring to it, man.
Oh yeah.
as the Vikings.
Too.
It's just perfect. It's just fucking perfect. I have a new D3 favorite team, folks. And yeah, look at that shot. It's fantastic. I can look into the future 50 years from now and see, that stadium packed up, and they've added on to it. Fantastic stuff. YouTube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. And look, love that too. There you got the little light post. It's just a cool stadium, man. It's a cool stadium.
Absolutely.
So we have the week upon us here. I'm sorry, there's another cool stadium. I thought I had less photos. That is a fire photo right there as well. Barry is doing it right.
That would be the shot of the day if we had it right there. That would be
there. We go. There we go. Get on down to a D3 football game, folks. Support college football on all levels. And obstructed view alert. Even
this is
Barry.
A scouting obstructed view right here. So, this is like, okay, maybe there's Barry and maybe there's somebody else playing on a Saturday and we can only go to one. Oh, well, maybe the obstructed view will tip you in the direction of Valhalla Stadium. So even 9-year-old stadiums have obstructed views. So I just saw that. I thought it was hilarious. So
perfect. Look, I have your upcoming schedule for this week, and I am going to punch the ticket for the folks out there. Maybe you're going to a game and you don't even realize you're going to be at a game with Michael Barker, aka College Football Campus Tour. Give him a follow, by the way, on Twitter @CFB Campus Tour. On Thursday, just right around the corner, Michael has punched his ticket to San Marcos, Texas, where this suddenly, look, earlier in my Texas State preview in the offseason, I was like, well, yeah, they're going to roll Arizona State. But Arizona State looks like the 72 Dolphins over there. This game, we know Texas State's legit. We thought they would be a preseason favorite to potentially win the Sun Belt. This game now has some major traction behind it on Thursday night here. Arizona State at Texas State. The Lone Star beers will be flowing. And from my recollection, I can't recall a P5 or P4 team playing at Texas State. So I imagine this place. And if you score this win, knowing what Arizona State has done 2-0, they probably look like a team that is going to be bowling this year. I have a under on 5.5 wins. That's definitely, or 4.5 wins. That's definitely cooked. But my point is that this is a substantial win if Texas State can do it. Much in the vein of Northern Illinois against Notre Dame. Where do you fly into? Austin there? What's the travel plan here for this game?
Austin, San Marcos is about 45 minutes south of Austin.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because I know San Antonio's their rivals, like UTSA. So I thought maybe you fly into San Antonio. Okay.
It seems like there's more affordable flights going into Austin than San Antonio. I don't know why, but I'm excited about this game for a million reasons. So you mentioned when's a big team came in there. 2020, I saw them play SMU. That was before they were a P4, but that was a COVID game. I saw them in 2018 play Louisiana. That was a Fun Belt game. But they've been working on the end zone as a $24 million renovation project in one of the end zones, the open end zone. And last year I got invited to come. There was a couple, they were coming up, and I held off for this game. I saw them week 1 of 2023 beat Baylor in Waco and saw what they were fully capable of. I saw GJ Kinney coach Incarnate Word and win the highest scoring FCS playoff game in history, 2022, 66-63 over Sac State. And then on the other side of that, I went to the opener and saw Arizona State beat Wyoming 48-7. And we mentioned, the truth would be revealed about them in week 2, and they beat an SEC team at home. And so this is one where, why do they schedule them, or why are they afraid? Well, this is why they're afraid in some points, but all respect to Arizona State coming to play this team. I'm sure when they made the agreement, they had no idea of the new coach and the offense and all this.
Guarantee you
guaranteed. And so this is one of the biggest games in Texas State history. I'm really excited to see how this is. I had a couple people in the comments when I put my schedule out today say, if Texas State wins, they rush the field. And, I've mentioned before, I've rushed the field at 14 FBS schools. So, the neutral fan in me wants the best experience, which would mean I want to rush the field. So, but that being said, this is two young offensive minds, Kenny Dillingham and GJ Kinney. They know each other, but at the same time, they know that they could pull any trick out of the bag. So this game for a Thursday night should have huge viewership. It should be must see TV for college football fans.
Hell yeah. Then on Friday, you jump to the Little Apple, Manhattan, Kansas. We were talking about this in the chat earlier. It's a series that goes back to the 1970s. And I know our guy, David Matola in the chat, big Arizona Wildcat fan. I tend to think they're gonna struggle here in the Little Apple, but Friday night game in the Little Apple, I can't recall the last time Kansas State played a weeknight game. You've been to Bill Snyder Family Stadium before, but I know this one's going to be different on a weeknight.
Well, this is way different because the only game I've been at in Manhattan was 2020 COVID game, 20% capacity. They played Arkansas State, and Arkansas State beat them. It was a big upset for them. So this is nothing like it. I have really been trying to gun for Kansas State on the same day. And now that Kansas is redoing their stadium, I just gave that up. And then also the fact that this is on a weeknight, as you mentioned, it's very rare to get these games on a weeknight. So Arizona last year was a great team, had a great season, and they hired Coach Brennan, and he's from San Jose State. That's near where I am, and they won their first two games. There's only two ranked games going. Mizzou hosting Boston College on Saturday, and this is number 14 versus number 20. So we know that Arizona didn't play that great against NAU, but things change from week to week. And so I'm very excited about this game. I've had a lot of people say this is going to be a great environment. And as I've said in previous episodes, I have photos of stadiums that I love, and they have a COVID crowd. So to be able to cash this ticket in and go to hopefully a sold out game, I'm really looking forward to it.
There we go. And then Saturday, you're in Richmond, Virginia. Check it out. Peter Francisco Sword, perhaps after. No, I don't think you're going to have time, but you're going to Robins Stadium. Charleston Southern is at Richmond. Charleston Southern with a gigantic win over Furman a week ago after blowing a game against the Citadel where they were up 21 points. I know Kevin from FCS Nation Radio is probably still rewatching that one. This is a fun one, and I think this game might be. I don't think Richmond's is good. Richmond's moved to the Patriot League, still puzzling to me, but I think this is going to be a game. I think you're in for a good one there in Richmond, Virginia, as as Charleston Southern takes on the Spiders. Spiders logo still one of the best in all of college football.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give full disclosure here. So I had for 4 months, I had Jackson State Southern at 1 p.m. and I had Belhaven, which was a D3 at 6 p.m., both in Jackson, walking distance. And they moved the Jackson State kickoff from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. because of weather in Jackson. And it made it so I couldn't see two games in one day. And I looked for any game within 2 hours of Jackson, Mississippi going on at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. I could make it work. And unfortunately, in this year where I'm trying to set a record for going to 100 games, I have to go to 2 games every Saturday. So that being said, I looked on the map. I looked at the logistics. There were two for ones that I could have done. One was Sewanee, which is a D3, which if you know college football history, 1899 greatest team of all time. They were playing at 1, and then Tennessee was playing at 7:45. But Tennessee was playing Kent State, who just lost to St. Francis. So I said, you know what? Let's go with this. Richmond, they made the playoffs last year. I saw Richmond play at UAlbany. So they're definitely a upper echelon FCS team. They're off to a bad start, 0-2. And you mentioned the big win by Charleston Southern last week. So I agree with you. I've never seen Charleston Southern in person. And this is the blueprint. We're going to reveal the next game. It's going to be an FBS game. But in an ideal world, every Saturday is going to be one FCS game and one FBS game. That's the ideal world. So to get two within driving distance of each other, I've been to Robins Stadium, haven't been there for a game. So I'm looking forward to checking this one off.
And then you're going to one of my favorite stadiums. Now, Scott Stadium is underrated. We previewed that in the ACC episode. Go listen to that or watch that. But this is a rivalry game too that goes back ways. Old ACC foes before Maryland sold their soul for the check. Maryland at Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia. Tony Elliott and Virginia just with a great comeback at Wake Forest a week ago. And Maryland a tough loss to Michigan State where they were offsides, where a kicker missed a field goal. They're offsides. He gets a re-kick. He makes it. Michigan State wins in a big time conference opener there for the Terps. Should be a good one, as this is just an old school rivalry that I grew up watching, every single year. So Scott Stadium's fantastic. I know you've been there before, but obviously this should be an exciting one with them being 2-0.
Yeah, and I'm happy about that, because what will happen sometimes is a game will work in your schedule, but the team is 3-6, and people will tell you, hey, this is not a great representation. Well, in the beginning of the year, there's always that hope that this could be a big year. The only other game I saw at Virginia was probably the biggest game in 25 years. They beat Virginia Tech in 2019. It was like they'd lost 15 straight Commonwealth Cups. They won. They rushed the field. So I got to see it in peak conditions. But you're right. I really like the stadium. I love those concrete like pillar arches in the end zone above the grass they have. And 8:00 in Virginia on a night game, it should be fairly warm. It shouldn't be any weather issues. So it's about it's less than 90 minutes away from Richmond. So first game's at 2, this game's at 8. It should be no problem to make these both. So having to pick up the pieces last minute to find a double to be able to get Richmond at 2 and get a big game, Virginia, Maryland at 8 p.m. I feel very fortunate to get these ones on my schedule. And honestly, we have 3 really big FBS games and a sneaky good FCS game as part of the 4-game schedule this weekend.
Fantastic stuff. And if you plan on getting out to a game, even if you're not even going to one of these games, you got to just make sure you let Michael Barker know. Give him a follow on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour. He's always, to me, the coolest follow on Twitter. I became friends with him, I feel like, via his tweets and everything. Once again, at CFB Campus Tour on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at the Colby D. I host the College Football Experience, which is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. Subscribe and let us know where you're going. I challenge you, go out to a game. Doesn't matter who. You know what I mean? Go out to a college football game. Support the greatest sport on planet Earth, folks. All right. Well, look, that's it. We'll be talking to you soon. All right. Till next time, folks. This is the Stadium Heads Podcast, Week 3 edition. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
No cream, no sugar, mocha only. Choke the microphone the way low can choke a phony, won't he? Hold the player station like a broken Sony. Tenderoni phone, she only come and stroke the pony. That good love deserves for Uncle Anatoni. Rats in the hood bug and they want more raw baloney. Chachi need to watch his bony, skinny Joni. Yelling fit the fattener up with minestrone. Been grown, chrome Molly skin tone. Wally rock the end zone, tap your toe or chin bone. The choice is yours alone. The game for the throne and to get the game zone. Doom man known as the Don for sure true. And he won't show his face or sponsor your group. He sneak up and throw you for a loop. She pick up, speak up if you want some more soup.
new shoes again? Who do's cruise again? Who's too smooth? Who's flues want snooze with them? No surprise, no new news to him. Here's a light bulb. Now how many of you screw this in? I do better when it's less team effort. With an old blue sweater, I'm a less clean dresser. Full circle, back to the drawing board. Mike by the mirror, I'm the best I ever saw record. Open doom, get it sewn like an open wound. Two scientists up in the lab will make it go kaboom. And said, don't mix those two properties together. Probably end up with some empty eye sockets or whatever. I'm only here to hunt pleasure like some treasure. Never from a whack pack of bitches like the Heathers. After this, you better owe 'em for some loot. You freaks, what the fuck will make me want some more soup?